Ryan, a charismatic photographer in his early 30s, has built a strong reputation for his artistic photography. His work is admired for capturing the beauty and essence of his subjects. However, behind this facade, Ryan harbors a dark secret. He's a serial killer. For years, he has carefully selected his victims from among his clients, capturing their last moments on film before ending their lives. To the world, his photography is stunning. To Ryan, it's a collection of trophies from those who met a grim fate. His latest assignment brings him to a prestigious charity gala in a small town, where he's been invited to photograph the event. The venue is a grand estate, filled with influential guests, and Ryan blends in effortlessly. He observes the crowd, camera in hand, searching for his next target. His eyes lock on Lily, a radiant woman in her mid-20s. Her elegant dress and confident demeanor catch his attention immediately. She's perfect. His next subject. Lily is new to the world of high society, having recently moved to the city to pursue a career in modeling. The charity gala is her first real opportunity to network with industry insiders, and she hopes to make a lasting impression. As she mingles with guests, she notices Ryan's camera pointed at her, unaware of the danger she's walking into. Ryan approaches Lily with a warm smile, introducing himself as a photographer looking to collaborate with new talent. Flattered by his attention and eager for a career boost, she listens intently. Ryan compliments her natural beauty, suggesting a private photo shoot that could help launch her modeling career. Excited by the prospect, Lily agrees without hesitation, completely unaware of his true intentions. Later that evening, Ryan returns to his apartment, where his darkroom holds more than just his photography equipment. Hanging on the walls are framed portraits of his previous victims, women who, like Lily, had trusted him. Each photo captures the last glimmer of life in their eyes, moments before Ryan ended it. He stares at the blank wall where Lily's photo will soon hang, his mind racing with thoughts of their upcoming shoot. But there's something different about Lily. Ryan feels a strange attraction to her, something he hasn't experienced with his other victims. As he plans how to lure her into his deadly game, a small part of him hesitates. He tries to shake the feeling, but it lingers, casting a shadow over his otherwise meticulous planning. Could this time be different? The next day, Ryan arranges a meeting with Lily to finalize the details of the shoot. His charm is irresistible, and Lily, still blind to the danger, happily agrees to meet him at a secluded location for the photo shoot. Ryan's heart races with excitement and something else he can't quite place. As the shoot approaches, Ryan's plan seems perfect, but deep down, doubt begins to creep into his mind. For the first time, he wonders if he's losing control. The day of the photo shoot arrived quickly, and Ryan meticulously prepared for the session. His studio, located in a quiet, out-of-the-way part of town, was dimly lit, giving off an air of intimacy, the perfect setting for what he had planned. He checked his camera equipment, ensuring everything was in place. But underneath the calculated preparations, a strange sense of unease gnawed at him. He wasn't usually nervous. His previous victims had never made him feel this way. Normally, he was in complete control, precise, methodical, and detached. But Lily was different. There was something about her that made him hesitate, something that triggered an unfamiliar feeling in him. Doubt. Lily arrived on time, her excitement evident in her bright smile. As she entered the studio, she marveled at the space, completely unaware of the danger she was walking into. For her, this photo shoot represented a chance to break into the modeling world. For Ryan, it was supposed to be another deadly conquest. Ryan greeted her with his usual charm, masking the darkness behind his eyes. "You look perfect, Lily. This is going to be a fantastic session," he said, positioning her under the soft lights. His hands moved deftly as he adjusted her posture, his fingers lingering slightly longer than they needed to. Lily, trusting his professional demeanor, followed his instructions without question. As the session began, Ryan found himself more distracted than ever before. Each click of the camera made him feel further from the control he once had. The plan was simple: draw her in, make her comfortable, and end it when the time was right. But as he took photo after photo, he realized he wasn't ready to finish it. His usual clarity of purpose was gone, replaced by an unsettling confusion. Lily, meanwhile, was thriving in front of the camera. She moved with grace, unaware of Ryan's internal struggle. To her, this was a dream come true. A professional photographer, captivated by her, guiding her every move. But the atmosphere began to shift when Ryan's instructions became more intense. He asked her to pose in increasingly vulnerable positions, his gaze lingering too long, his touch becoming more invasive. "Ryan, are we almost done?" Lily asked, sensing something was off. Her voice broke the silence, snapping Ryan out of his daze. For a moment, she thought she saw something dark flash across his face, but it disappeared as quickly as it had come. "Yes, just a few more shots," Ryan replied, his voice steady again. But inside, he was fighting against a growing urge. The urge to stop, to let her go. As the session neared its end, Ryan stepped away from the camera and approached Lily. His heart pounded in his chest. This was the moment. He could feel it. But just as he reached for her, there was a knock at the door. Ryan froze. "Are you expecting someone?" Lily asked, confused. "No," Ryan whispered, his calm facade starting to crack. The knock came again, louder this time. Ryan's perfect plan was unraveling, and for the first time, he wasn't sure what to do next. Ryan's heart raced as the knock at the door echoed through the studio once more. He wasn't expecting anyone. This interruption was completely unexpected. His pulse quickened as he turned towards Lily, trying to maintain his calm demeanor, though his mind was frantically racing to figure out who it could be. Lily, sensing the tension in the air, glanced towards the door with concern. "Do you want me to check who it is?" she asked, her voice laced with confusion and unease. Ryan shook his head quickly. "No, I'll get it," he replied, attempting to sound nonchalant. But inside, he knew that whoever was at the door could potentially ruin everything he had planned. He wasn't ready to lose control, not now. He walked to the door slowly, his hand hesitating on the knob. Whoever it was, they were about to throw a wrench into his carefully laid plans. With a deep breath, Ryan opened the door just a crack, enough to peer outside without letting Lily see. Standing there was Henry, a fellow photographer and a close colleague of Ryan's. "Henry? What are you doing here?" Ryan asked, surprised but trying to keep his tone neutral. Henry looked apologetic but determined. "Sorry, man, I didn't mean to intrude. I just wanted to drop off the new equipment I borrowed from you. Figured I'd return it before I forgot." He held up a camera bag, oblivious to the tension radiating from Ryan. Ryan quickly assessed the situation. He couldn't afford to seem suspicious, not to Henry. "Thanks, but you should have called first. I'm in the middle of a shoot," Ryan said, trying to get him to leave without raising suspicion. Henry peered past Ryan, spotting Lily in the background. She waved politely, assuming it was a harmless visit from a colleague. "Oh, sorry, I didn't realize." "Well, I'll just leave this here and get out of your way," Henry said with a smile, placing the camera bag on the ground. Ryan's grip on the door tightened as he forced a smile. "Yeah, I'll catch up with you later." But Henry didn't seem to notice Ryan's discomfort. Instead, he took a step forward, clearly interested in the shoot. "Mind if I take a look around?" "I've been wanting to check out how you set up your sessions," he said casually, his eyes roaming the studio. Panic flared in Ryan's chest. He couldn't let Henry stay. Not with Lily here. Not with what he'd planned. "It's really not a good time, Henry. Maybe another day," Ryan said, his tone firmer. Henry blinked, finally sensing the edge in Ryan's voice. Sure. No problem, man. I'll head out." "Catch you later," he said, backing away. Ryan nodded and closed the door quickly, releasing a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His hands trembled slightly, the close call rattling him. He turned back towards Lily, forcing a smile. "Sorry about that. He's a bit nosy sometimes," Ryan said, trying to regain control of the situation. Lily laughed lightly, though the tension still lingered in the air. "No worries. Are we finishing up?" Ryan nodded, though his mind was still on Henry's unexpected visit. He had to wrap this up quickly. Time was no longer on his side, and he knew that things were starting to slip from his grasp. The careful web he had spun around Lily was beginning to unravel. After Henry left, Ryan struggled to shake off the unease that lingered in the studio. He could feel the careful balance of his life teetering on the edge. Lily was still unaware of the dark path she was treading, but Henry's sudden arrival had rattled him more than he cared to admit. Ryan's mask of control had almost slipped, and that wasn't something he could afford. As he resumed the session with Lily, his mind kept drifting back to Henry. Ryan had always prided himself on keeping his two lives separate, his photography career and his darker urges. But with Henry showing up unannounced, the barrier between those worlds had cracked. He couldn't stop thinking about how close Henry had come to witnessing something he shouldn't have. Ryan's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the camera lens. He forced himself to focus on the present, knowing that any slip-up could cost him dearly. Lily stood in front of the backdrop, her eyes gleaming with enthusiasm, completely oblivious to the danger that lurked behind Ryan's friendly facade. Her excitement for the photo shoot only made it more difficult for Ryan to stick to his plan. Lily's soft voice broke his thoughts. "Ryan, do you think we'll finish soon? I have a few more things to prepare for the project." Ryan nodded, though his mind was far from calm. "Just a few more shots, and then we'll be done," he replied, his voice tight. As he snapped the final photos, a plan started to form in his mind. He needed to act fast before his carefully crafted persona began to crumble. But before he could take the next step, his phone buzzed on the table beside him. Ryan glanced at the screen. It was a message from Henry. "Hey man, forgot to mention earlier. Got some weird vibes at your place. Everything cool?" Ryan clenched his jaw. Henry was starting to get suspicious. He couldn't afford to let anyone, especially Henry, get too close. He typed back quickly, trying to dismiss Henry's concern. "Yeah, all good. Just focused on work. Catch you later." But the unease in his stomach only grew. Henry wasn't the type to just let things go. Ryan needed to handle the situation with Lily tonight, and fast. Once she was out of the picture, he could deal with Henry. But before that, he had to make sure Lily never left the studio. As Ryan set the camera down and walked over to Lily, his demeanor softened, though his mind was already planning her end. "I think we got some great shots today. You were amazing as always," he said, his voice smooth. Lily smiled warmly, unaware of the predator that lurked beneath Ryan's charm. "Thanks, Ryan. I'm so excited to see how they turn out." Ryan's pulse quickened as he took a step closer. "Actually, I have a few shots I think you'll love. Why don't you come take a look at the camera?" Lily eagerly approached, unaware of the fate that awaited her, but as Ryan moved to carry out his final act, his phone buzzed again. He hesitated, glancing at the screen. This time, it wasn't Henry. "Detective Sarah here. Got some questions about your work with Lucas. Can we talk tomorrow?" Ryan's heart skipped a beat. Lucas, his previous victim, the name he thought he'd buried in the past, was resurfacing, and this time with law enforcement attached to it. Ryan's grip on reality was slipping, and with every second the walls were closing in. His plan for Lily had to be sped up. Time was running out. Ryan's heart raced as he reread Detective Sarah's message. She had mentioned Lucas, a name Ryan had long buried along with his other victims. How could the past resurface now, just when he was so close to finishing what he started with Lily? His mind raced, trying to piece together how much Sarah could know. Did she suspect him? And if so, how? Ryan's eyes darted to Lily, who was still standing innocently by the camera, oblivious to the sinister tension mounting in the room. He couldn't delay any longer. His plan for her had to be executed quickly, but now there was a much larger threat looming. Detective Sarah. If she was already sniffing around, it was only a matter of time before she connected the dots between Lucas, his other victims, and now Lily. Ryan felt the noose tightening around his neck. He put on a mask of calm and approached Lily. "Lily, something's come up, and I need to cut today short. Let's finish up next time, okay?" His voice was smooth, but underneath it his panic was brewing. Lily smiled, completely unaware of the danger she had narrowly avoided. "Sure, I'll see you tomorrow then?" Ryan forced a smile. "Yeah, tomorrow." As soon as Lily left the studio, Ryan locked the door and collapsed into his chair, running his hands through his hair. He needed to think, and he needed to act fast. He couldn't afford to lose control now. Lucas was supposed to be a closed chapter, a finished story. But somehow, Detective Sarah had found a thread, and if she pulled it hard enough, it would unravel everything. Ryan grabbed his phone and typed a reply to Sarah, keeping his tone casual. "Hey Sarah, sure, we can talk tomorrow." What's this about, though? He needed to know how much she had uncovered and whether he had any chance of throwing her off his trail. Ryan stood and paced the room. If she knew too much, if the investigation had progressed further than he thought, his only option might be to run. But that would raise even more suspicion. Ryan stared at the empty studio where Lily had just been. He had planned to end her life tonight, just like his other subjects, but now he had to rethink everything. His escape window was closing, and he needed to ensure that whatever happened, Sarah couldn't prove anything. The next morning came too quickly, and Ryan had hardly slept. His thoughts kept circling back to Sarah and how much danger he was in. He arrived at a small diner where Sarah had asked to meet him, his mind still replaying every encounter he had ever had with Lucas, every mistake he might have made. Sarah was already seated at a booth near the back, her sharp eyes scanning the room before they landed on Ryan. He approached her with caution, masking his anxiety with a friendly smile. "Morning," Ryan greeted, sliding into the seat across from her. "What's this about?" Sarah leaned in slightly, her expression unreadable. "I've been going over some things related to Lucas's disappearance. I know you worked with him on that last project before he vanished. I just want to go over a few details with you, nothing too serious." Ryan's mind raced, his heart thudding loudly in his chest. The noose was tightening, and he could feel it. He had to tread carefully now. One wrong move, and it was over. As he met Sarah's piercing gaze, the diner's atmosphere felt suffocating, every creak and clatter amplified in his ears. He had to maintain his composure. Any sign of nervousness could tip Sarah off. "So, what exactly do you need to know?" Ryan asked, keeping his voice steady, though internally he was crumbling. Sarah leaned back, crossing her arms. "It's about Lucas. I've been looking into his disappearance, and some things aren't adding up. You worked closely with him before he vanished, didn't you?" Ryan nodded slowly, his mind racing. He needed to say the right things. "Yeah, we worked together, but after the project ended, we didn't really stay in touch." "That's interesting," Sarah said, her tone neutral but her eyes sharp. "Because I spoke to someone who said Lucas was uneasy around you before he disappeared." Ryan's stomach dropped. Who could she have spoken to? Lucas had been on edge toward the end, but Ryan had been careful. Or had he? His mind flashed to his interactions with Lucas, trying to recall any slip-ups that could have given him away. "Uneasy? I don't know where that's coming from," Ryan replied, forcing a laugh. "Lucas and I got along fine. Maybe he was just stressed from the project." Sarah's gaze didn't waver. "Maybe, but there's something else. I came across an old photo of Lucas. He had this strange scar on his wrist. Did you ever notice anything like that?" Ryan felt the blood drain from his face. He had given Lucas that scar during their struggle. It was one of the few times a victim had fought back. Ryan thought he'd covered his tracks well enough, but it seemed like Sarah had found a crack in his facade. He had to deflect, and fast. "No, I don't remember seeing any scars," Ryan said quickly. "But it's been a while, you know. Maybe I missed something." Sarah studied him for a moment longer, then smiled slightly. "Yeah, maybe." Just then, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, and her smile faded. "I have to go, but this conversation isn't over. I'll be in touch." Ryan nodded, barely keeping his panic in check. As Sarah stood and walked out of the diner, Ryan realized she was closer than he had thought. His secret life was hanging by a thread, and it was only a matter of time before she pulled it. Once alone, Ryan hurried back to his car. He had to think fast. Lucas was already dead, but Lily was still out there, and Sarah was starting to connect the dots. He needed to finish his plan with Lily before Sarah dug too deep. But something told him that time was running out. Later that evening, Ryan returned to his studio, his thoughts scattered. He picked up his camera, the tool that had allowed him to capture life's moments and steal them away. Every photo was a reminder of his twisted control, his power over life and death. But now that power was slipping through his fingers. He couldn't afford to slip up again. If Sarah found out too much, he'd be finished. As he prepared for his next photo shoot with Lily, Ryan's mind raced. He needed to finish what he started with her, but now there was another obstacle in his way. Sarah was too close, and if she kept pushing, Ryan's entire world would collapse. He needed a plan, a way to end this once and for all. Ryan paced his studio, the tension in the air thick enough to cut through. His plan with Lily had to be flawless. There was no room for error now. He had been careful, meticulous even, but Sarah's relentless investigation was closing in on him faster than he anticipated. He glanced at the clock. It was time. Lily would arrive soon for her photo shoot, completely unaware of what Ryan had planned. He knew this had to be his final act. The walls were closing in, and Sarah was becoming a threat he couldn't ignore. If he could eliminate Lily tonight, it would buy him more time to cover his tracks, to disappear before Sarah could catch him. The sound of the door opening snapped Ryan back to the moment. Lily walked in, smiling as always, her carefree nature making her the perfect subject. Ryan forced a smile in return, hiding the darkness that lurked behind his eyes. "Are we ready to start?" Lily asked, placing her bag on a nearby chair. She adjusted her hair, oblivious to the tension simmering in the room. "Yeah, almost ready," Ryan replied, positioning his camera. "I just need to set a few things up." As he fidgeted with the camera equipment, his mind raced through the steps of his plan. Everything had to appear normal, just another photo shoot. He couldn't afford any mistakes. He needed to remain calm like he always had. But just as he was about to begin, there was a knock at the door. Ryan froze. It was late and he wasn't expecting anyone else. His heart pounded in his chest as he approached the door, opening it cautiously. Sarah stood on the other side, her eyes narrowing as she took in the scene. "Sorry to interrupt, Ryan. I just had a few more questions about Lucas." Lily glanced over, surprised but unaware of the underlying tension between Ryan and Sarah. "Now isn't really a good time," Ryan said, his voice betraying the irritation he was trying to suppress. "I'm in the middle of a shoot." "This won't take long," Sarah insisted, stepping inside despite Ryan's protests. She looked around the studio, her eyes lingering on the camera equipment, the dim lighting, the eerie quiet that hung in the air. Ryan's stomach churned. He couldn't let Sarah stay. Not with Lily here, not now. The plan was falling apart in front of his eyes. He shot a quick glance at Lily, who seemed confused but not suspicious, yet. Sarah turned to Lily, smiling politely. "You must be Ryan's new subject. Beautiful work, I'm sure." Lily smiled back, a bit flustered. "Oh, thanks. We're just about to start." Ryan's mind raced. He had to think of something, anything, to get Sarah out of here before things spiraled out of control. But before he could respond, Sarah's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, her expression shifting to one of surprise. "Interesting," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. Then she looked directly at Ryan, her eyes sharp with suspicion. Lucas wasn't the only one, was he? Ryan felt the blood drain from his face. Sarah's words hit him like a punch to the gut. She knew, maybe not everything, but enough to end him. "Excuse me?" Ryan managed to say, his voice strained. "I did some digging, Ryan," Sarah continued, her voice low but firm. "Lucas wasn't the first to disappear. There's a pattern. You're at the center of it." Ryan's heart raced, the room spinning around him, his hands clenched into fists, his mind scrambling for a way out. But Sarah wasn't backing down. She took a step closer, her gaze never leaving his. "It's over, Ryan," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of certainty. "I've got enough to bring you in." Ryan stood frozen, Sarah's words sinking into the silence of the studio. For the first time, the reality of his crumbling facade hit him like a cold wave. He had never been this close to losing everything. Lily, still unaware of the tension between them, fidgeted nervously, sensing something was wrong but unable to place it. Sarah took another step forward, her eyes locked on Ryan, her posture tense but controlled. "You know it's over, Ryan. There's no point in pretending anymore." Ryan trying to calculate his options. Could he still escape? Could he silence both Sarah and Lily before anyone else found out? But deep down, he knew it was too late. Sarah had already connected the dots, and now the law was closing in on him. "I don't know what you're talking about," Ryan said, forcing calm into his voice, though the edge of desperation couldn't be hidden. Sarah tilted her head slightly, her gaze unwavering. "You killed Lucas, didn't you? And the others. I've been following your trail for weeks. You left just enough behind. You thought you were clever, but you made mistakes." Lily's eyes widened as the realization hit her. She looked at Ryan, horrified. "Ryan, What is she talking about? Ryan's pulse quickened, his eyes darting between the two women. His carefully constructed world was collapsing around him. He could see no way out now. If he tried to run, Sarah would stop him. If he denied it any longer, it would only buy him a few seconds of peace before the inevitable storm. He took a step back, running a hand through his hair as if to clear his thoughts. His hands trembled. "Lily, you don't understand." "I think she does," Sarah interrupted. Her voice was low, steady. "She knows what's going on now, and soon everyone will." Ryan's mind screamed at him to act, to do something, but his body felt frozen in place. Sarah's presence was like a vice tightening around him, closing off every possible escape route. There was no more playing the innocent photographer, no more pretending. He had been caught, and deep down, he knew it was inevitable. Just as Ryan started to make a move, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance. They were getting closer. Sarah had already called them before entering the studio. It was over. Ryan's knees felt weak as the walls of the studio seemed to close in on him. The reality of his situation weighed down on him, crushing his spirit. He turned toward the door, his face pale, and found two police officers entering, guns drawn, their eyes trained on him. "Ryan Miller," one of the officers called out, "you're under arrest for the murder of Lucas and others. Put your hands up." Ryan's arms fell limply to his sides. He had no strength left to fight. With a slow, deliberate motion, he raised his hands. Lily stared at him in shock, tears welling up in her eyes as she backed away. The weight of the betrayal hung in the air like a dark cloud. The officers moved quickly, cuffing Ryan as Sarah stood by, watching. "It's over," she repeated softly, more to herself than to anyone else. As they led Ryan out of the studio, the reality of his fate finally settled in. There would be no more escapes, no more hiding behind the lens of his camera. His reign of terror had come to an end. Sarah exhaled deeply, watching as Ryan was taken away. The darkness that had surrounded his twisted mind was finally exposed to the light.